Hello everyone, I am Meenakshi Siddharth Raja and my wonderful teacher from whom I am learning coding is Miss Varsha. So you might be wondering that why I'm here. So today I'm going to share and present everything that I've learned today. So before we start, first let's understand what is coding. So coding is the process of assigning a code to something for classification or identification. In simple words, coding or programming is the process of creating instructions for the computers using programming languages. Now, before we move on, let's see the two things we need to think about before we start coding. So the two things that we need to think about is why do I need to choose this? As in, how will it benefit me in the future? And the second thing to think about is where will I be using this? So when we think about this question, we get to understand that how will it help me in the future? Without knowing where you will be using it, there won't be any point in doing that certain thing. So these were the two things that we need to think about before we start coding. So as I said before, coding is the process of creating instructions for the computers. So if you have noticed, when we program robots, it has a certain type of intelligence to do things. And this is called AI or artificial intelligence. So what is AI? Artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence in machines that are programmed to think like humans and mimic their actions. So from this, we can conclude that AI is nothing but making the machine work. So now that we know what is coding and AI, let's move on to the exciting part. That is to learn how to actually code. Are you ready? Because I am. So come on, let's have some fun. The first topic is object-oriented programming. So what is object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm based on the concept of objects, which can contain four parts. And those four parts are class, objects, functions, and properties. So first, let's understand what are objects. So an object is an influence of class, but class is just a blueprint. As a developer, we should look at everything as a collection of objects. Every object has two things, and those are properties and functions. Properties are qualities or characteristics of the object, and functions are the actions that the object can do. So now that we know what is object, let's move on to understanding what is a class. So class is just a blueprint. It does not actually exist. Inside class, we initialize the properties of the objects and put this inside the constructor. Then we write the function and close the class. So let me give an example of class in our daily life. So over here, you can see the blueprint of a car. And from this blueprint, you can create many vehicles such as a van, Audi, and a sports car. So from this, we can understand that class is the blueprint and object are these vehicles. So you might be wondering, what is constructor that I mentioned when I was explaining class? So to construct an object, it will initialize the properties of the class. Now, let's understand what are variables. Variables are memory spaces where computers store the objects. In coding, variables are represented by using the var keyword. So there is a certain way to write variables. Let's check that out. So as you can see, the variable is represented using the keyword var. Always remember not to write the number and then the object name. Always remember that you always write the object name first and then the number. So now let's learn the syntax for creating class and object. So assume that the class is ball. So we open the bracket, we write the constructor inside, then we open the flower brackets and open the constructor and write this dot x pos, which is x position, this dot y pos, which is y position, and now we write this dot width. So the width is same for all. So those properties whose values are same for all, that we can define here itself. And then after that, we write this dot height. And then we close the constructor. Now we are done with properties. Now let's move on to functions. So over here, display is the function. So you can give the function name as anything you want. And inside the function, we write the logic. So over here, we have written rect. Rect is the short form of rectangle. And then inside the bracket, we write this dot x, this dot y, this dot width, this dot height, and we close the bracket. And then we close the flower brackets and close the class. So this is the class, and I have written it in a separate file. So in another file, we have function setup. So over here, the function setup is function draw. So in this, we give the background and other such things like that. So we are creating the object now. Before we create the object, we create the variable. So the variable name can be anything like ball1. So to create an object, we use the new keyword followed by the class name. So now I'm going to explain how this works. So first, when the computer sees new, it will understand it has to create an object. So then it will create the object, but it won't know object of which class. So then it will go to this and know that it's the object of the class ball. And then it immediately goes here, and under the class, they look at the constructor and initialize the properties and create the object. So now that we know the syntax of the class and object, let's move on to the exciting part of coding, and that is sprites. So what are sprites? A sprite is a two-dimensional bitmap that is integrated into a larger scene, most often in a 2D video game. In simple words, we can say that sprites are the characters of the game. So if we want the sprite to move, we have some combinations to learn so that it can move in different directions. So let's check that out. So these are the 4 combinations. Let's take the example of the numbers 3 and 4. So if 3 and 4 are both positive, then it goes right side up. If 3 is negative and 4 is positive, it will go left side up. And then if 3 is positive and 4 is negative, it goes right down. And then if both the numbers 3 and 4 are negative, it goes left down. So that was all I learned from White Hat Junior till today. I hope you liked it. Thank you.